Hello everyone. Hope you guys are having a good time at PAS. My name is Raj Pochiraju and I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft. And I primarily work in Azure Hybrid Data Group. Primary responsibility is to product manage the Arc-enabled SQL servers. And I have Dinakar Neti, my colleague, with me. And as well as we got two guest speakers today. Naresh Sunti, who represents state of Louisiana, and as well as Chandra represents the customer World Bank, both leveraging the Arc-enabled SQL servers to manage their SQL server estate. And they're going to tell us their story, how Arc-enabled SQL server is really helping them in managing their SQL servers. Right, so welcome to the session, Manage, Secure, and Protect the SQL servers using Arc-enabled SQL servers. The agenda is going to look like this for next 75 minutes or so. At first, we are going to be introducing Arc-enabled SQL servers to you, and then start introducing some of the capabilities and how those capabilities are going to help you in managing your SQL servers. And then we have several demos that we are going to show you on the live to see how Arc really helps you. And then we are going to share the customer stories as well. Right? So that's kind of the agenda that we are going to be looking at it. So before I really deep dive into the Arc-enabled SQL servers, so I'm going to start with at least 3 questions to you guys. So raise your hands, how many are you or your customers have all your workloads just running only on on-prem? No workloads, no applications running on the cloud, everything just on-premises. Like maybe 3. So you don't have any workloads running in cloud, like maybe 3 people. So tell me how many of you are your customers running everything in the cloud and everything is got migrated from on-premises environment to the cloud. We don't have anybody, right? And then how many of you really running your workloads on multiple clouds, multiple cloud platforms? So here is the thing. So if you notice it, the way that customers really managing their infrastructures for their workloads is more of adopting a hybrid type of architecture, where they have the workloads which are running in the on-prem, and they started their migration journey to the cloud, and then they're kind of migrating the workloads which are kind of ready, but then there are going to be some workloads which are going to be staying on-prem. So basically, on day-to-day life, we're dealing with the environments which are sitting in the on-prem, and some workloads are hosted on the cloud, and some workloads are hosted on multiple clouds. So we have spread across all our IT resources, basically. The whole infrastructure and as well as applications, databases spread across multiple of these environments. That is kind of a challenge, which is a good thing, because that is exactly the 90% of our customers taking their migration journey, which is a good thing, but it also has challenges. If you look at the challenges, how do I really manage all these SQL servers across, deployed across on-premises cloud and then the multiple clouds, and how do I get a single point of view of all these SQL servers to begin with, right? How do I really get visibility of all my SQL server estate to begin with? And then how do I really extend my capabilities to the cloud? How can I start leveraging cloud benefits to really effectively optimize my performances, optimize my costs? How do I really extend my workloads to the cloud? That is kind of another challenge, right? And then customers who are really migrating, and obviously the migrations will take multiple years journey. Actually, migration itself is a journey, right? How effectively I can really migrate these workloads, and then also start leveraging the cloud benefits to really optimize my costs. So these are the various challenges that customers are facing today. And we have an answer for that to really help you to deal with those challenges. And that is itself is Arc-enabled SQL Server. What this really means? That means when I say you're Arc-enabling your SQL servers, essentially you are connecting your SQL servers to Azure. And you're not migrating. You're just connecting your SQL servers wherever those SQL servers are deployed. Doesn't really matter whether they can be on-premises or whether they can be on the edge devices, or it can be on a different non-Azure clouds. Wherever they are staying, they're going to be staying right there. but then you are connecting those SQL servers to Arc or to the Azure. And what will happen? So once you connect the SQL server to Azure, all of a sudden, you can start really managing, securing, and protecting those SQL servers at scale, the entire estate, with a single control plane called Azure. And we have several capabilities that we recently enabled and more capabilities that we are going to be enabling in the future to really help you to manage, secure, and protect those SQL servers. So that is exactly what we are going to be deep diving today, how Arc can really help you to manage these SQL servers. And at very broad level, we have like 3 buckets that you can think of in terms of the capabilities that Arc-enabled SQL Server offers. One is the manageability capabilities. To get a single viewpoint of all your estate, get the inventory, the basic and as well as the advanced inventory of all your SQL servers, so that you can really get good insights about your the SQL estate. And then you use those insights to do the proper planning, whether it could be a cloud migration or just leveraging some of these cloud capabilities to manage your SQL servers that really help you to take some of the planning and decisions to begin with. And also the disaster recovery aspects of it, high availability aspects of it, business continuity. You can be able to manage from the Azure regardless where these SQL servers are deployed. And then the next bucket of capabilities is that how to govern these SQL servers. How to govern the access control for these SQL servers at really scale for the entire estate. How to classify your data. And how do you really define which specific roles can have access to a classified data. And what is my data lineage to begin with? Which applications are accessing what data? And how the data is really flowing between downstream applications and upstream applications. All that lineage. That is really supported through by integrating with Purview. Purview is a great platform originally designed for the resources which are sitting in the cloud databases. But now we bring all that, the power of the Purview to really govern, protect your SQL servers to the on-premises environment using Arc-enabled SQL servers, right? And then securing your SQL servers. The final bucket is how do you really secure? The Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which is originally available for cloud services to really do vulnerability assessments and as well as to detect any of the the threats that are coming into your SQL servers. Now we extend the Defender functionality to on-premises SQL Server environment through Arc enablement. So these are the various benefits. And Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory, which is also called as Entra now, Microsoft Entra, which is only available for SQL servers which are running on PaaS, Platform as a Service, and SQL VM. Now you can use for the first time an on-premises SQL server which is running on on-prem. You can use Microsoft Entra to have a single sign-on, right? So these are all the benefits now we are extending into on-premises environment as well using Arc-enabled SQL servers. And then we do have plans to make your migration journey seamless as well, and which I'm going to show you how the migration journey is going to look like for you once you Arc-enable your SQL servers. So at very broad, these are the various cloud-connected experiences that you can really get for Arc-enabled SQL servers. I'm going to list a few of these. I think some of them are already covered in my previous slide. And one of them is like the disaster recovery. Now you can really establish a disaster recovery solution for your on-premises databases and SQL Server MI, which is running on the cloud, on the Azure, as a disaster recovery site. So you are really outsourcing your disaster recovery site to the cloud. These are all happening through Arc enablement, basically. The same thing with the Fabric. You might have heard Fabric as a unified analytical solution that Microsoft has built, and we are doing GA this week. And to really move your data from your operational store, which is sitting in the on-prem, into the Fabric, we're going to be, in the future, we're going to be enabling the data replication from your on-premises SQL Server operational database to the Fabric, one lake, so that you can really run your analyticals from the Fabric itself. So these are the bunch of features that are being enabled, which really help you to manage your SQL servers at scale. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Dinakar to really talk through some of the manageability operations that he is driving across this solution that really help you to manage your SQL servers at scale. And he's going to show some demos as well. Go ahead.
Thanks, Raj. So you all heard from Raj about 3 categories of capabilities, right? The first one is management capabilities, govern, and secure. So under the management capabilities, I'm going to talk about a few that we have released already and few that are releasing this week. So the first one is inventory and metadata. One of the consistent feedback we have heard from a lot of the customers that we have been working with early on, like since the beginning of this year, is that just the ability to query or get a list of all your SQL Server instances, what versions they are on, what operating system they are on, get a list of the databases, what are the server settings for that SQL Server, what are the database level settings that you have, like auto, shrink enabled, some people still do that. When was the last full backup done? So just being able to get this information at one location is very powerful. I'll show you some demos here, like for example, the dashboard that you're looking at. It takes literally 10 seconds to build a dashboard like that, where you can get an at-scale view of all your SQL servers, whether they are in Azure or outside of Azure. So you can actually categorize them: Azure SQL MI, Azure SQL Database, SQL Server in VM, SQL Server running outside of Azure, what versions they are at. Like you can slice and dice like till you get bored, right? So let's jump to a quick demo. And we need to switch to.
Yeah, I did.
Cool. Thank you. Should I zoom in a bit? Is that better? Cool. Thanks. So this is a resource group, and you can see a bunch of resources I have. The idea here is that all of these, like you look at the type, SQL Server-Azure Arc, SQL Server Database-Azure Arc. The SQL Server that you're looking at is running on a desktop on my in my office, basically, right? It's not in Azure. All I did was Arc enable it, which means I installed an Arc agent on the box, and that agent projects the SQL Server into Azure as an Azure resource, and it shows up as a -Azure Arc resource, right? So let's look at the SQL Server and see what properties you can look at. So this one is called RC data, ignore the name. So right off you can see the version information, like SQL Server 2019, what edition it is, what's the host that's running the SQL Server. And we also have a bunch of license information, extension related information. There's also information about backups, when was the last full backup done and all. And there is a databases tab where you can see a list of all your databases. You can click through into the database and then get database level metadata, right? The collation levels, last full backup, what else? Auto shrink enabled, whether it's encrypted or not. So this is good if you want to look at one server at a time, but nobody's going to look at one server at a time if you have hundreds of SQL servers, right? The power of Arc enabling all your SQL Server really shines when you can write a KQL, a Kusto query, to get a list of these servers at scale. So that's the dashboard I want to show you today. If I go back to my, sorry, I need to switch between. So this is the dashboard that you saw earlier as a screenshot. So this tells me the number of servers that I have by distribution. Like some of them are in Azure, Azure SQL Managed Instance, SQL DB, and some of them are outside of Azure, like 80% are outside of Azure, right? How many databases do I have? What databases typed, SQL DB versus SQL Server? There's a lot of rich information you can get. Like you can create these tiles. You can customize these tiles, right? All it does is just a KQL, each query at a time, and then fill these charts as you want. And you don't have to be like a PBI expert or something to get these charts. Just go to github.com, search for SQL Server samples. I have a link, I think, here.
Yep.
There it is. So just go to samples. There's a features, and then under workbooks, there is a SQL workbooks JSON file. Download the file, upload it to Azure portal, like literally 5 seconds, and it shows all your inventory in that dashboard. So at this point, I also want to call up one of our customers and share their story of how they're using Azure Arc. Yeah. So introduce yourself, Naresh. Tell us where you work and what is the value you see in Azure Arc.
Meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, more than happy to take a couple of questions actually, as we pause for the talk here.
Yep, there's a question.
What is it? I'm sorry? Yeah. It is already enabled. That's a very good question. The question, yeah, I'm going to repeat the question for people. Is Azure Policies is integrated with Arc-enabled SQL Server, right? Yes, given that when you connect your SQL Server to Arc, it is being treated as a native Azure resource. It is just like any other Azure resources. You will get an Azure resource, as Dinakar mentioned in a few minutes ago. And then you can really apply Azure policies, whichever policy that you want to apply. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you one policy where we kind of, enabling the features at scale. And you can define that policy and you can really enforce that policy at the subscription level or at the resource group level for your choice, right? Yeah. So it's already integrated actually. Yep. I'm going to talk about the pricing a little later in my conversation. Let's hold on the question for now. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Naresh Santi. I'm the Senior Database Program Manager for the state of Louisiana, Office of Technology Services Data Center Operations. I know it's a mouthful. Our unit basically is a DBA service provider for all the state agencies in Louisiana. Prior to ARC, we really didn't have a comprehensive go-to list of SQL instances that we were responsible for. Our SQL estate basically was a pile of spreadsheets floating around in a bunch of emails and network shares, which got updated like once a month or something like that if you were lucky. So approximately about 2 months ago, our Microsoft rep introduced us to Azure Arc. And showed us a simple dashboard, just like the one Dinakar just showed. And we were really impressed by it. And that's when we Arc-enabled our first SQL server. And I think the screenshot here shows, I don't know, we have about 200 plus SQL instances and growing since then in Azure Arc. In the first phase, our goal was to Arc-enable all the non-prod and some low-impact prod instances across all the agencies and build this dashboard along the way. As you can see, our dashboard is pretty similar to what Dinakar showed, pretty simple, straightforward, and self-explanatory. It shows our SQL Server distribution by environment, by the SQL editions, by the SQL Server versions, number of cores by editions, the different patch levels, and so on. And when you come to the database section, it lists the total number of databases, and then the distribution of those databases by compatibility levels, recovery mode, last known full and log backups, and so on. About 70% of the dashboard that I built was just basically, like Dinakar suggested, is going to that GitHub repository and importing a JSON dashboard template, and the dashboard was there in like 5 seconds. The remaining 30%, I had to, like Dinakar again was mentioning about KQL, learn a little bit of Kusto query language, and then learn a little bit about Azure Resource Graph Explorer, and just kind of play around the Azure Arc metadata, just to know which fields I need to pull into the Azure Arc dashboard. And there's tons of information both in the portal and also online about these resources that I was talking about. And coming to phase 2, our goals, which we are currently on the phase 2, we want to our goals are to Arc-enable more high-impact prod instances. And the second goal is to add Arc onboarding as one of our like provisioning workflow. So basically, the idea is if we get a request for a new server, we would Arc enable that before we release it to the customers, so that our dashboard is populated with that new instance, new SQL instance automatically. The next goal after that was to build agency-specific dashboards. The dashboard, the overall dashboard that we service providers see, we want to build filtered dashboards for the agency heads. So when they log in, they see only the server and database information specific to their agency. And eventually, I think Dinakar and Raj will go over it. The goal is to leverage the auto-patching, the best practice analyzer, the defender, and the monitoring piece, which was announced today, the keynote, to leverage those. And we're really excited about the monitoring piece that we heard today. So, anything else you want to go over?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you so much for
do you have any feedback or anything you want to share with the team?
Yeah, feedback or lessons learned, whatever you want to call, like basically Arc enabling was a fairly straightforward and simple process, but depending on your environment, you may need to involve your network security or infosec folks in the beginning of your journey, Azure Arc journey. It also helps a lot to get their buy-in early in the process for a successful and smooth rollout of the Azure Arc down the line. Another suggestion I would make is not to hesitate your Microsoft account rep in your initial discussions about Arc with your managers, your network infosec groups, who it may be. Microsoft folks have been a tremendous asset in the success of this project for our organization. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll turn it over to our gurus here now.
Thanks for sharing your story, Naresh. Okay, so the second management capability I want to talk about is the automated backups and point-in-time restore. So what you heard was just the first one, and we just got started with that journey. This feature, backups and point-in-time restore, is getting released this week. So we have monthly releases, and in the November release, we have two features. One is the automated backups and point-in-time restore, and the second one is about availability groups, which I'll just come to in a minute. So we'll just start with the demo. We'll skip the slides. So again, we have the same SQL Server that I just showed you earlier. What you will see is on the left, towards the bottom, there is a backups tab that will show up starting probably next week. And you can see all your databases, and there will be a restore button once the backups are available. So there is a configure policies tab at the top. So you can configure your backup policies. There's two settings, if you will. One is the retention, like how long you want to keep the backups for. This is in alignment with Azure. You can keep it from 1 to 35 days today. And the second setting is about the schedule. Again, there's two options. One is the custom option, where you can choose how often you want your full backups, how often you want your differential and the transactional backups to happen. I think the transactional backups will be in incrementals of 5 minutes, like 5, 10, 15, up to an hour. And for differentials, you have either 12 hours or 24 hours. And for full backups, you can do on a daily basis, every 1 day, every 3 days, every 5 days, up to 7 days. And
you're using RSP backend or this block storage?
I'll come to that. Good question. So you can choose the schedule, or there is a default schedule, which is what Azure SQL DB and other Azure databases follow, which is weekly, full, daily, differential, and every 5-minute transactional backups. So once you configure the settings, you just hit apply, and it gets applied right away on your SQL Server. One thing I will caution is, this is disabled by default. Like the feature is there in the extension, but it's not on. We don't want to disrupt or mess up your existing SQL Server backups, which you already may have. Highly likely that you already have something going on right now, so we don't want to break that chain. So it's disabled by default, so you have to go do a smooth transition where you want to disable your existing backup routines and then turn on the built-in backups from Azure. And then once you turn it on from the Azure Arc, we will kick off a full backup for all the user databases, and then going forward, it will be like differentials and T-logs. So we are just taking over from the whatever you had before. The question was about where do you store the backups? There is right now in SQL Server, there is a default setting for where the backups should go to. So we just go read the property from that and write to that location, so wherever your location is. We don't support backups to Azure or S3 yet. It's just local storage, so wherever you configure it to.
So if I've already got on-prem that I'm backing up to Azure, I can't use that feature?
Correct. So the question was, if you already have backups going to Azure, I cannot use this. That's right. If you use this, it will write to your local storage. So the ability to write backups to Azure is on the roadmap. I don't have a date yet, but it's the next set of features. Again, we are just getting started with the Arc journey. This is like the very first V1 set of features. We have a lot to deliver on our roadmap, so that's coming.
There's no way to customize that setting where it backups per database?
So the question is, there is no way to customize, or where do we customize?
You said only you put the setting on an instance level. What we do is override per database API. So depending on the input parameters of the backup script, override the backup location specific to specific database.
Got it.
Okay.
So the question is, they customize the backups to at the database level. Right now, again, this is at the instance level. All that is like in V2, V3.
Feedback taken actually.
Thank you.
Yep.
So once you configure the backups, like I said, backups start showing up, and then the restore button will be available. Again,
Is that instance by instance, or can you set it across all your ARC?
so the question is the configuration at the instance level, right? Yeah. The configuration right now is at instance level. Whatever schedule you set, it will be for all the databases on that instance. Yep. DB level scheduling is on the roadmap again. It's coming. So it's crawl, walk, run. So I'll show you the point-in-time restore feature. It's pretty straightforward. You just click on restore. We have already pre-filled out the source database and the source instance for you. There is a window, earliest restore point and the latest restore point. So the earliest will be the first full backup that we do, and then the latest will be whatever is the last transaction log backup that's available. And then you can restore to any point in that window. And today you can only restore back to the same SQL Server database. We don't support like cross database yet. Again, it's on the roadmap, it's coming. But again, we are starting with simple basic stuff, and then we'll add features as we go. That's on the backups. Yeah. Switching back to, yes.
Go ahead, please.
The backup history is stored in S3. So if I have a server crisis and I took the access to the backup history, taken locally, or the backup history is stored in the cloud. So where does it access the metadata in the MSDB?
Yeah, good question. So if I go back to cancel here.
So the question, to repeat the question, is where does the backup history get stored? Is it in a local MSDB database, or is it stored in the cloud as well, right?
Yeah. So there's two things here. One is the scheduling, and then the history. The scheduling is on the agent, the Arc agent, not the SQL agent. So we are not creating any jobs in your SQL agent. Everything is managed by the Arc agent extension that's running in the as a service in the backend. And regarding history, we don't store any history. The agent just initiates the backups. The history is in the MSDB. So what is in Azure portal is only the last full backup and last log backup, I think.
But I think the feedback here is that you want to see that history in the Azure portal itself.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if
makes
I
sense.
if I lose the MSDB database,
Yep.
I want to restore the database.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
Then I have to find the blob storage.
Yeah, no, good feedback. Thank you. Go ahead.
That custom metadata, like ownership or environment or whatever you want, description of what database is for. When you enable Arc,
Can we add metadata to the databases? right?
Regarding metadata, you can add tags
Yeah.
at the Azure level. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's switch back to No,
No, the fourth. Yep. Yep.
Good, thank you. So I think we covered most of this. The next feature we'll talk about is the always-on availability group. Here we go.
Yep.
And switch back to this one, sorry. So in the same resource group, I have, if I go back to the resource group, I also have a AG set up. I have a domain controller and 3 SQL Server instances that are part of an availability group. So you will see SQL 01, SQL 02, and SQL 03 in this resource group. Again, this feature is getting released this week. It's in public preview right now. So on the left, you will see a tab called Availability Groups. So when you click on that, so what we do is we go round trip and get back a list of all the AGs that are part of that SQL Server. So you will see a list of your availability groups. And when you click on it, this is where the power of, or there's some magic that happens where we actually make a round trip down to your server. The extension on the box will connect to your SQL Server, run the DMVs to grab the status, and then send it back to Azure. And in Azure, you get a real-time status of your AG. You can get pretty much all the information that you see in your SSMS AG dashboard. So we pretty much replicate that in Azure. Okay. So you can see who's the primary, what is the status of your synchronization, is your AG healthy or not. So you get all of that in Azure anytime.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
About the AG support, can you create alerts based on that?
So the question is, can you create alerts based on that? So that's a good question. This was a design choice we had to make where there's 2 paths where you take the information, store it in Azure, and then show it in portal. If you store it in Azure, you can write KQL like in the inventory situation where you can query that and get the information, but that will be stale data unless you're constantly uploading your AG status info.
Yeah.
So the choice we made is to not store the data in Azure. So when you come to this page, we actually go down to the server, bring the data real time, and we're not storing it anywhere, which means
Is that a direct query?
correct.
Yeah.
It's on that moment when you click on that page, when you click refresh, we go get the data. So it's not stored anywhere, we just throw it away, which also means you cannot create alerts today. Again, we know we don't expect people to go to this dashboard if you're managing like dozens of SQL servers, right? A lot of AGs, so that's next in line.
Yeah. So just to add on top of it, right? So basically today, we only show the inventory, collecting the inventory and ability to give you the way that you can really monitor the status of availability groups real time from the Azure portal without logging into the SQL Server box itself is the first iteration that we did. But we are also receiving feedback from the customers that they want to extend further where they want to have an ability to manage always on availability groups from the Azure portal itself, and then creating some kind of alerts like you said, if the availability groups is not online, if it is not, synchronization is not happening as expected, and customers really want to get that alert system as well. So one part of it is like I'm going to share some monitoring, the monitoring capability that we are building, which includes monitoring the whole aspects of SQL Server that includes the availability groups as well. And the next step for the monitoring is to extend producing the alerts as well. So these are all coming in the future releases of the roadmap actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead.
So you have inventory, your instances, databases, your availability groups, and there also something foreseen for the SQL logins, the proxy accounts, all the security related stuff. Is it also being
So the question is, are we also capturing any security information? No, we don't get any logins. That's all on the box.
So what's your requirements? You want to be able to look at monitor the logins, the auditing and all the stuff?
are the accounts that have access?
Yeah.
For instance,
Yep.
the logins.
The logins, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they inventory?
No.
We don't inventory the logins yet, but if that is a requirement, please submit for our feedback as well. Like we're more than happy to consider that.
No. So today we only capture the inventory and metadata. We are not capturing any actual data or the logins.
Yeah. So one way to control your access policies to the SQL Server is, like I mentioned in the beginning, we integrated Arc-enabled SQL servers with Purview. Right? Purview is the central platform to govern your SQL servers, right? Where you can really author a specific policy within the Purview itself, who can have an access to what type of data, and then you can apply that particular policy across your entire SQL Server estate without logging into SQL Server, without even writing a single T-SQL query to begin with. Like, you don't have to create sp_login, add login. Without doing any of these login operations, you can use Purview integration that we did to really control the access of SQL servers, who should access and who should not.
Yes, sir.
You might talk about this later, but when you're going to Arc enable my on-premise servers, what type of installation are you doing? Is it per instance or per physical server, let's say physical virtual?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Yep, I'm going to talk about towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah, for the sake of the time, we have a lot of content that we want to share, and we also have a customer story that we want to share as well. So we're going to kind of moving on at this point.
Okay. So one thing I'll quickly show is if I go to one of my secondary instances, there is also an option to do a failover. Like if I go to availability groups, here, you'll see there is a failover button. So you go to one of the secondaries, either O2 or SQL O2 or SQL O3 in this case, and you can initiate a failover. This is a happy path failover today, meaning your SQL instances or the AG instances have to be in a synchronous replication mode, and it has to be in a healthy state for us to do a failover. We don't want to take the data loss failover yet. That's something you have to do if you want to do that.
Since you're hitting the DMV, can you show us like the reading queues and stuff so we just know like it's going to take a while because there's still a lot of long.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yep.
So there are two ways that we can really look at the status and as well as the trend, basically, right? The real-time status is one thing, and also with the monitoring capability that I just talked about, which can also monitor the function of the availability groups in general. There also we are going to be providing some of the data points like what is the redo log lag, how much the data lag is between source and the target kind of stuff. Some of these will come in the monitoring as well, but anything that real time that you need to know, that you will find out here right away. Okay, that is more important. But the other aspects will go into the monitoring capability basically.
And if you hit the failover button, it may take 10 minutes because there's so much log.
Correct. Sure. I think.
See that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Yep. So, can we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to be switching the topics a little bit here. You guys can still hear me, right? Yep. Yep. Where is my 3? Okay. So Naresh talked about best practice assessments, right? He has some plans to enable the best practice assessments to Arc-enabled SQL servers. So what exactly the best practice assessment to begin with? Best practice assessment really help you to maintain your SQL servers in a healthy state. Think about nowadays, like DBAs have to do more with less. Imagine that a DBA like managing hundreds of SQL servers to begin with, and when the DBA starts their day, one question comes like, which SQL servers that really require my attention? Which SQL server is running into an issue that I really need to pay my attention and then try to fix it? Knowing that information itself is not easy thing when you're really managing hundreds of SQL servers to begin with. Right? That's where the best practice assessment really help you to really proactively identify that any risks that your SQL server is running on, and then it also provides a mitigation recommendations to you. So you would know which SQL servers are running into. For example, you're running out of log space, transactional log space, and it will tell you that you're running out of log space, you only have 10% of space left. Or if you're running out, fragmented indexes, for example, if you have fragmented indexes, it will tell you that these are the indexes that are heavily fragmented, and hence it is going to impact your performance. And if there are any tables that are missing indexes, basically, it will tell you that these are the tables which are missing indexes, but your queries are extensively doing the read operation on these tables. So proactively, it will tell you that really help you to maintain your SQL servers in a healthy state. And we really look into the 360 degrees view of entire your SQL server, not just the performance, but we'll look into disaster recovery, HA, high availability aspects of it, security aspects of it. We look into more comprehensively. We scan all your SQL servers and then provide you the assessment how your SQL server is doing, how healthy it is. right? What are the risk items? What are the issues that you need to address? And also we prioritize those issues for you in a priority order so that you can really prioritize. For example, based on the risk, high level risk, medium level risk, low level risk. That way you can really prioritize which of those SQL servers that you want to address and everything. So that is about the best practice assessment that really help you to assess your SQL servers to begin with. The next assessment that I'm going to talk about is the migration assessment. This is first time that we are introduced. Sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, for the assessment, can you register exceptions?
Can you register what?
Exceptions, like you have a certain setting.
Yeah.
You want, sure, you can say it's wrong.
Yeah.
But I know this application requires them.
Yeah, technically it is possible. Basically, the REST API and everything that we are really using to do the assessment, it has an ability to customize some of those rules. Like for example, I have one customer saying that XP CMD shell, right? Usually it's not a best practice to enable XP CMD shell, but they don't have any other choice because the vendor application need XP CMD shell. Yeah. And they don't want to get this issue shows up in their leadership dashboard every time, right? Because it's a known thing, they knew it, they want to deal with that risk, right? Yes, there are some feedback coming in, like enable some of the customization to these rules, which is kind of in the roadmap. Today, you cannot do it, but that's not an impossible thing that we could do. Yep. Okay, so now the migration assessment. So there is a difference between a best practice assessment and a migration assessment. Best practice assessment will help you to maintain your SQL server where it exists today in more healthy way. Now, you imagine that you Arc enabled your SQL server to really manage your SQL servers at scale, but at some point of time, now you want to really see how ready I am migrating to Azure SQL to begin with, how ready I am. Because now maybe this is the time for you to think about migration from your on-premises environment, how ready it is, right? That is the first step in the migration journey. First of all, you need to really discover your SQL server, get the inventory of it, and then do a performance assessment, how ready it is, go to the SQL server, and if it is ready to go to Azure SQL, which deployment option is a good fit for me. You want to get this kind of a recommendation from these assessments to really understand and plan your migrations to begin with, right? So those assessments, the migration readiness assessments are now for the first time getting integrated with Arc-enabled SQL servers. You might be familiar with some of the tools that you might be using for migration, like DMA, which is Data Migration Assistant tool, Azure Data Factory, or Azure Migrate, some of these tools that you might already be using it. But a lot of our customers who gave us a feedback, who are doing both migrations and as well as Arc enabling, they actually told us, when I connect my SQL server to Arc, which means is that I already started my migration journey. That is the way that they see that they started their migration journey by Arc enabling it. So that they started benefiting the cloud benefits to begin with. They're getting used to the cloud, right? The migration is just the next step. So we have a plenty of opportunity to streamline the entire migration experience through Arc enablement, basically. That's what exactly our customers really told us. And we took that feedback, and then we started integrating the migration experiences into Arc enabled. So once you Arc enable it, you don't need any other tools. You just can use Arc itself as a means of migrating to the Azure SQL to begin with. We don't have everything in place today, but we took a first step to enable the assessments, which I'm going to show you as well. Okay, so at first I'm going to talk about a little bit about the best practice assessment that I first talked about. So this is the type of assessment that you get. As you see here, I don't know how big it is for you. So these are the various, the ones which you are seeing in the tags, these are the various areas of SQL Server: performance area, DBCC, consistency, and as well as disaster recovery. These are the multiple areas that we look into to the health of the SQL Server and provide those recommendations in terms of. So briefly, if you look at some of these recommendations here, enable instant file initialization. Not only that it is going to identify the risks, but it also provides you a best practice recommendation. And these best practice recommendations are compiled with all our 30 years of experience dealing with very, very large SQL Server customers. And we took all that IP and then made that as an assessment to you so that we can really help you to proactively maintain your SQL servers in a healthy state. So all that knowledge is kind of encapsulated into these set of rules, right? So we proactively did that. The idea here is that once you implement the recommendations that we mentioned, at least the ones with the high and medium risks, the number of times that you need to call Microsoft that you ran into a problem with your SQL server we expect that it's going to go down. And our data shows the same. At least 30% of the times that in the past when we did the analysis, 30% of the times that the number of times the SQL Server customers called Microsoft for a critical situation is dropped by 30% within 6 months of the time, right? Which is a win-win for both Microsoft and as well as the customers because it's an expensive thing to troubleshoot, right? So that is about the best practice assessments. And then I'm also going to talk about the migration assessment now. So I'm going to show you here. Yeah. So once you Arc enable your SQL Server, our goal is to provide a readiness assessment right away in an automated manner. By default, you will get a migration readiness assessment because our customers told us they want to know how ready they are. Whether they're migrating today or tomorrow, that's a different thing. But at least let me know how ready I am so that I can really plan my migrations, right? So by default, these assessments will be enabled for you in a continuous manner. And these assessments will provide you the readiness aspect of it, and as well as the size, which optimal size that I can really go and migrate for each of these deployment options, right? So here, this is the Arc-enabled SQL Server page that you are seeing it. We already did your assessment for you as soon as you Arc-enable your SQL Server, and we are telling you that congrats, you're really ready to migrate to Azure SQL. And if you really want to go to that assessment report, that will take you to this assessment report, and it has 3 different deployment options for you. In case if you want to migrate to MI, you're ready to go, and this is the size of this queue that you should go. And the size of this queue is computed with a very sophisticated algorithm. We look into your 30 days of performance of data, and based on that, we look into your disk I/O requirements, we look into your CPU, we look into memory, and then we try to match with a Azure SQL SKU or the size SKU that can really match the performance that your workload really requires. That way, when you really migrate to Azure SQL, you will not run into any performance issues. Go ahead, please.
Are those recommendations based on actually performance metrics?
Yes.
And not just only the hardware that is?
No, that's a good question. Question is, are these recommendations are based out of the actual performance of your SQL Server? Yes, they are very much based on the actual performance of SQL Server, and we look at 30 days of your performance last 30 days, and we also look at 95% percentile times where your CPUs and memory and disk I/O requirements are need to met for your workload. Right. This is a very limited internal build that I'm showing. I only got access to like 2 days ago this from my engineering team. So this will be, we are expecting to release by February timeframe.
Yeah, but can you disable it? I mean, we have servers no full network.
Yeah. So the idea here is, more than happy to hear feedback. The idea here is we want to enable for every SQL Server, for every customer by default, but we will give an option to disable it in case if you want to disable it. Is that it makes, yeah, okay. Okay, now I think we are getting short on the time. So I'm going to invite, with all these capabilities that you have seen with Arc-enabled SQL Server, I got more, but for the sake of the time, I want to invite Chandra from World Bank, who are extensively leveraging the Arc-enabled SQL Server for managing SQL servers and also for their migration journey. I want to invite her onto the stage and start sharing her story with us. Please welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, you can take it. Yeah, please tell us about a little bit about you and what you do at World Bank.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm in World Bank. I manage SQL Server operations. I'm a tech lead. Basically, we are having about 350 SQL servers on premises and on Azure and AWS also. So, and also these, the customers are across all the country offices, like about 130 country offices. Hundreds of customers are there with different SQL Server versions and different requirements and all from the application teams. So for us, the problem was like, and also different IT units are there managing their own, the SQL Server, means like operations from the servers and also performance and everything, like different IT teams are there. So then we were exploring any options to manage these things, okay, using one solution efficiently.
Yeah, so the pain point basically You have different groups are managing different types of tools. They are managing different type of environments. So you don't have a single viewpoint of your entire SQL Server estate, it seems.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And also, it used to take a lot of time to coordinate with all these different teams.
Yeah, makes sense.
And align them with our requirements. In terms of monitoring and performance optimization, and also security, compliance, and all that. So it used to take a lot. If management asks us, okay, to provide some information, we had to go to all these different teams and get the data, and then only we could provide this information to them. It's a lot of time consuming, actually.
Yep.
So it used to take like few days, actually, because some of the IT teams are in different country office locations and all.
Yeah.
So that's why. So then management asked us to look for an efficient solution where it helps us, so that any team can access, and like we have different teams like infrastructure teams, server teams, security teams, and internal auditors, and so many different teams are there. So then we came across this Azure Arc, and we were exploring, but initially it was very difficult, challenging to understand how to implement this, and educating the management and also different teams how it will be helpful and what is the value we get out of it, So in fact, we had a big meeting with all these teams, and security team was not approving actually to move forward with this, because they were thinking that this is a redundant solution, because all the other teams have different solutions and already signed contracts and all that. But then we have to educate them what are the features that we can implement for SQL Server estate, and what is the value that we are going to get out of it. And finally, this project was approved for us, and we started implementing. And then again, we came across different challenges, like with the high privileges, so security team does not approve to have high privileges for system accounts and all that. And also we have to educate these network teams to allow the traffic, because the traffic is going from on-prem, from so many servers, like we are talking about 300 and above servers, and to connect to the Azure portal in cloud. So they wanted to review all the servers and for the data, okay, in terms of security.
Yeah. So that's we got a lot of plenty of good feedback from this whole exercise, right? It's just not that World Bank really benefited from this solution, but we also got benefited. Especially she was talking about the privileges. So today, if you want to really run Arc-enabled SQL Server, we use NT Authority System Account, and that requires to be a member of a sysadmin role. You know how powerful the sysadmin role is, right? For a SQL Server, you're pretty much giving everything. If you are a member of sysadmin role, that means you have everything of the SQL Server in your control, right? It's a super user role. And then that has been a very hard pushback from World Bank.
Yeah,
they even said that we cannot even do preview, basically, right? We cannot even do a pilot. So we took that feedback actually, and then now we came up with a concept called least privileged account. So we exactly looked into what specific permissions are required to onboard your Arc-enabled SQL Server to begin with, to connect SQL Server, and which permissions that are required for each of these capabilities that are kind of, customers are going to use. So we only assign the required permissions only when a specific capability they enable it. For example, if they're not using auto backups that Jennifer mentioning, I don't need to give those backup permissions to, or the permissions required to do the backups for this account. I only do it when it is needed, and if they disable that, we will remove those permissions backly. And this whole aspect of least privileged account, assigning the permissions and everything is fully automated. You don't have to worry about it at all. We use the NT local account managed by Windows, and then it is no longer a member of sysadmin account at all. But then we kind of handle those permissions accordingly. Question?
How do you set the permissions then?
I'm sorry?
How do you set the permissions then?
How do you set the permissions? Good question. I'm going to go a little more deep technical here, right? So when we have two processes when it comes to Arc enablement, right? One is the deployment process, which is a basic connectivity of your SQL Server to Azure, and then the capabilities. it is a service. The Azure SQL Server extension is a service which runs on this least privileged account. But the deployment the one which happens only one time, which has admin privileges on the box. So we impersonate the service account that the SQL Server is running on, and then use that impersonation to assign the permissions. Once the deployer has done its job, it will not interfere with the Arc service any longer. So that's how we do it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, then because we have ICFR, SOC 1 databases, so that's why security team was monitoring very closely. And once this came up, we were thinking we don't know whether we will move forward or not with this project. And then Raj was involved, and that issue got resolved and successfully.
So one more question. So which capabilities that you used from Arc actually? Which are the top? Give me top 3 capabilities that you used to manage your SQL servers basically.
Basically, this first we started with initially like original SQL Server assessment, and then
the best practice assessment.
After that, we replaced with this best practices assessment.
Yep.
And Cloud Defender is one, and Insights also is another one.
Yeah.
These are the 3 main things.
Yeah. So they use a Cloud Defender, the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, to secure their SQL servers at scale, at the subscription level. The thing is with Arc, one thing that to note is I have more capabilities that I want to share, but this is very important you guys to listen. When it comes to Arc, it is all about scale. We're not talking about a single SQL server here. We're talking about the entire estate, right? Once you connect your SQL servers, that is the place where you can start using Azure policies and all these capabilities that can be enabled for the entire estate, saying that, all my Arc SQL servers in a given subscription do this thing. It will go on and do it. You don't have to individually go to each and every SQL servers to begin with. Yeah. So that is the beauty. And when it comes to SQL BPA, originally we did not have a scale story. So these guys have to go every SQL server and start enabling it. And they have around 200 to 300 SQL servers at that point of time.
Yeah.
Right? Then said, this is not really working out for us because each time the DBA is spending 10 minutes on this thing. Then we came up with an idea like, why can't we give a built-in Azure policy? And then that policy, they just activate that policy so that it will go on and enable SQL BPA across their estate to begin with. So these are the learnings that we have from these customers, and then based on those learnings, we are kind of adding iterative way. Every month we kind of implementing those learnings that we get from our customers actually.
Yeah, that helped us a lot. Otherwise, we could not meet our deadlines for these deliverables actually. So that helped us a lot. So
okay. So where is your migration? Are you planning to do any migrations, or is Arc really helped you at all in your migration journey to begin with, or?
Yeah, actually, we internally used ourselves to migrate for some of the clients already using these assessment reports. And recently, we provided these assessment reports, means our feedback to all the line of business units actually.
I see.
And so that they have an idea and they can plan in terms of budget and any other things that they need to. And means depending on the duration, the time that it can take for their projects, for their applications, they can plan. But we already gave some kind of feedback to different units already this year. Yeah. So that they can do that.
Yeah. And one more feedback, I think if I remember, you talked about the network aspects of it, right? Enabling the specific set of ports to be able to go on and connect your SQL Server to Azure. That has been a friction point. Yeah. Some customers, they don't want to enable the public ports to begin with. Even if they want to enable it, there are too many ports actually. Like if you look at the network requirements, if you're familiar with Arc, there are like, maybe 5 URLs that you need to go and then enable 443 to it. Even customers willing to do it, but these are too many URLs. The more URLs you have, the more friction that you will get from your network team. So Arc server team is coming up with a concept called a gateway, Arc gateway. So we combine all these into that gateway. All you need to do is just open a port for that gateway. That will take care of all the other requirements that you need. So that is also coming. So the lesson comes from, the learning came from World Bank and other large customers that we are managing with.
Yeah. For now, we are using the private endpoint for this service
private endpoint
actually.
too. Yep.
So that way, it's approved by the security.
Thank you. Anything else you want to share?
No, so using this Azure Arc, we are able to consolidate many things like inventory management and streamlining the maintenance tasks, like mainly the patching side and backups and also this best practices assessment, and also getting the insights of this cloud migration. So this is basically one solution. Anybody can access this through the Azure port.
Yeah, I
portal.
like that one solution for
Yeah.
managing all your SQL servers, regardless where those SQL servers exist. That's the main point.
Yeah.
Your SQL servers can be already migrated to Azure. Some can be in AWS or Google. Some can be sitting in on-prem. We still have a single control point for you, right? If you cannot migrate, we will come to you. We will help you. If you migrate, that's great, and we help you in the migration journey. But for some reason, your workloads has to stay longer on the on-prem, we are going to bring cloud services to you, to your doorsteps. That's the motive that we have actually, right? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, we do have AWS servers also. We already enabled
Yeah, that's
this one. Yeah.
yeah. So they enabled Arc enabled the AWS servers which are running on EC2 actually. Yep.
And another important thing is security office is using the Cloud Defender and this Microsoft Purview for cloud to monitor the security vulnerabilities for cloud instances. Now they are able to extend to the on-prem servers also.
Yeah.
That is one advantage.
Yeah.
So,
So regardless, whether it is a cloud service or not, you will get a consistent experience across the entire manageability aspects of it. That's another advantage that you have.
yeah.
Okay.
And one last thing is
Yep.
like we could cost optimization
Yeah.
because all the other teams are using different tools, so we could consolidate and reduce the cost and reduce the security risks and everything. So it helped us a lot.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Anything
you.
else?
No, that's
No, thank you so much. So for the sake of the time, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. So what I'm going to do, I need to optimize my presentation a little bit here, given the time, right? We talked about the Defender, we talked about the Purview and everything. These are the capabilities really help you. But I think I want to address some gentleman asked the question, cost and pricing and all the stuff, right? So I'm going to address that. Go ahead.
One quick question, because in the earlier slide you said it for Entra ID.
Yeah.
Is it limited to Entra IDs in the database, in the ARC database, or is it also user-managed identity for authentication?
The Entra, first of all, Entra is supported for only SQL Server 2022 and above. And this is the user-based logins, the AD logins, AAD logins.
Okay, so only the AD login.
Right.
Not the managed identity.
No,
not the registration.
not yet, not yet.
Not the guest accounts.
Huh?
And not the guest accounts.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to really give absolute. I think I got a few more minutes. Arc-enabled SQL Server itself is free. Let me make that point once again. You are not paying anything extra for Arc-enabled SQL Server itself. That comes free, right? And Arc-enabled SQL Server has got bunch of these capabilities. The manageability capabilities that some of the ones that Dinakar showed. And then also there are services like Purview, Defender, Sentinel. These are the services. So think about three buckets here. The very first bucket is the basic connectivity to the Arc, right? That's first thing. And you're not paying for any of the Arc connectivity to begin with. What you are doing is you are telling us in the Arc what type of license that you already have for your SQL Server. You might already have a software assurance license that you already paid for your SQL servers. You just need to tell us that I already paid for it, right? Once we know that these SQL servers are already paid, then bunch of these capabilities are going to get you for free, like the auto backups, the migration assessments that I talked about, the monitoring capability, the basic monitoring capability. These are all come free for you. You don't have to pay anything. But the services like Purview, Defender, Sentinel, these are the separate Azure services to begin with. So you have to pay for those ones. And especially with the Defender, you will get a huge discount if you enable Defender through Arc-enabled SQL Server as compared to enabling Defender outside of Arc, right? So that's the distinction. So the license type is nothing but you are telling us that I already have an SA license, so that unlock my benefits, please. That is what exactly it means. There is another license type which I'm going to talk about, pay as you go. So pay as you go is a cloud concept originally, like you pay for only what you use. For the first time in SQL Server history, we bring the concept of pay-as-you-go to your on-premises world as well through Arc enablement. So now you can really use the pay-as-you-go if that is beneficial for you. There are some type of workloads pay-as-you-go is beneficial. For example, the workloads you run it on seasonal manner. Like for example, December, you are a retail store, right? Probably you want your SQL Server up and running on December time frame. Once that is done, you don't need SQL Server for that workload. At that point of time, rather than paying a constant perpetual license, you can use pay-as-you-go so that you're only paying for what you are using it. And you can use that other perpetual license to apply to another SQL Server basically. So there are scenarios where pay-as-you-go can be very useful. And our customers are using it based on the specific scenarios. Or you're running a monthly reports, and beyond that point, you don't need SQL Server. So you shut down your SQL Server, you don't pay for it. You switch on SQL Server, you just pay for how long you use that SQL Server. So that's called pay-as-you-go. And I want to make sure that that is also another license type. So you have a SA license type, you have a pay-as-you-go. For both of these type of license types, the capabilities that I talked about, you get for free. Got it? So that's the key differentiation that I want you to take away. But otherwise, you're not really paying for Arc to begin with. Now, not only that we help you to manage your SQL servers at scale, but we also help you to optimize your costs. Extended security updates, like if you are really running the legacy SQL servers like SQL Server 2012, and extended security updates are very critical. Yes, Azure, the Arc is rendering those or delivering those extended security patches for the last 2 years for you, but then we came up with a more innovative way to save the cost for you. So this is called extended security updates as a service. What that really means is, it means that you don't have to pay the 3 years of the licenses for the extended security patches in a fixed cost. You don't have to do that. If you subscribe for this service, you only pay for whatever the time that you are using those extended security updates. For example, if you migrate your server to, after 1 year, you bought the extended security updates, but after 1 year you migrated to cloud. Then with this option, you stop paying that the extended security updates license beyond that point, right? So it's a flexibility. It's going to give you a flexibility in terms of the way that you can really leverage extended security updates as a service. So that's another capability that we kind of delivered. Any questions on this pricing? I know this is a topic of confusion. Actually, we receive a lot of feedback as well. I want to make those points very clear for you guys. Okay, if no questions, then there are a few aspects that I skipped to save the time, and I especially wanted you to listen to our customer stories as well, how they kind of Arc enable their SQL servers. I want to go back some of these, like especially the monitoring, right? So this week, we released a feature. This is the top ask from our customers actually. This is if you look at all the asks that customers has for Arc enabled SQL Server, monitoring is the topmost. They want to have an ability to monitor their performance of their SQL Server estate, right, from the Azure control plane without logging into the SQL Server to begin with, right? The real-time monitoring, and as well as get the trends across how your SQL Server is performing over the period of time. That monitoring capability is released for the public preview this week itself, and I'm going to show you that as well. Hopefully, I'm going to get to the right page here. Yep. So right now, unfortunately, I don't have any load on my box at this point of time. But if you look at that, right, what is really performance in terms of SQL Server, right? CPU, memory, disk I/O. These are the basic stuff. And beyond that time, like you will get locks, latches, wait times, and all the stuff. But the basic resources are 3 resources: disk I/O, how the I/O response is doing, number of reads per second, number of reads per write, and all the stuff, IOPS, and then CPU cycles and memory. That basic stuff has been integrated now into Azure monitoring, and this is by default available to you. You don't need to do any configurations. We think that every SQL server deserves to have a monitoring experience. Same way, we think that every SQL server deserve to understand how ready it is to migrate to Azure. So these are all like some fundamental assumptions that we made and validated with our customers. Monitoring is one of them. Now you can really monitor all your SQL servers without logging into the SQL server. You go to beach, all you need is like just internet connection. Once you have an internet connection, you can really monitor your SQL server from anywhere else. Right? We're not going to stop right there. In the future, we are going to be enhancing this capability more to more advanced monitoring, where we can be able to see your wait times, latches, which queries are being blocked, which queries are blocking what queries, and what are the top 100 queries that are consuming the resources. We can go to any extent to really help you to fine-tune your performance of SQL Server. So this is another feature that I really want to show you, and just released it in the Ignite timeframe. Right? Any other questions?
I just have one.
Okay.
In terms of hardware changes, if I have a server that is ARC-enabled, that is, like, let's say, 8 cores, and I have changes over time, and then I end up with 16 cores, I am able to see that change
Yes.
over time?
Yeah.
Let's say in ARC, you're going to be able to tell me, okay, you were 8 cores in November, now in May, you're 16 cores.
Yes, like if you have a continuous monitoring enabled, you can look at the trend of the CPUs. You should be able to see that. Yep.
Does that count into licensing? So during December, if I'm using pay-as-you-go, I can take down my virtual machine, double down on CPUs, pay more for that month, and then
Yeah.
take it down again.
Yes, that's exactly how the pay-as-you-go is going to work for you. Yeah. It has pretty good algorithm in terms of number of vCores, how busy that each of the CPU, and we look into all those factors. Yes. Yep.
Is there any kind of performance hit with having that?
Great question.
On the server?
Yeah. Is there any performance impact by ARC enabling, basically, right? Yeah. So we did some benchmark testing actually, and then we enabled SQL BPA to see how much that is causing this thing. It's pretty lightweight. At least our benchmarks shows less than 2% actually. And none of our customers really complained so far. I haven't really heard. I don't know if my colleagues really heard or not. None of our customers complained about ARC causing performance issues to begin with. Pretty lightweight. Go ahead, sir.
I'm not sure if you already mentioned it, but so how does ARC run on my system?
How does ARC run?
Service on each server?
Yeah. I think I do have a slide. If we have, how many? We got 2 minutes.
It's a host level service.
Yeah.
One per VM or one per host.
Yeah.
One per host.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of an architectural diagram. Basically, I'm going to go through this. You have your SQL servers which are running outside of Azure, like on-premises, right? When you ARC enable, what will happen is, at first we ARC enable the server at the Windows level, right? It will come up with an agent called guest agent. That guest agent will be deployed on your on the SQL server, right? The soon that there is a guest agent is installed and the ARC server resource created, it automatically detects that the SQL server is deployed on that box. And then it also installs the SQL server extension for you. And then it will create a ARC SQL server resource for you automatically. So we streamlined the onboarding of ARC SQL server, completely in an automated way.
Would updates to ARC come along with the CU for your SQL version, or would they be separate?
On the ARC server, there is auto updates enabled. That will take care of both Windows and as well as the SQL server updates as well. But we also have an update service which you can also enable, which takes care of the SQL server updates. Yeah.
Just a quick clarification on that. It's not cluster aware at this point.
Yeah.
It's more for standalone servers. If you have like a FCI or AG, you want a more controlled orchestrated updates. That is not available yet. It's on the roadmap.
And that is also another ask we are getting, one of the top asks that we are getting from customers. Now that, see, we go in an iterative way. So now we enabled the inventory of the failover cluster instances, the inventory of the availability groups. Now we're going to be extending further to do the auto updates, which are aware of the HA configuration, and then reduce your downtime during the update. So that is kind of an extension to it. Question?
What are the retention capabilities for monitoring?
Retention capabilities for the monitoring, is it, Lance, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so for retaining the data for monitoring, you can go back 1 day right now. We will extend the retention
Yeah.
It's all going to an Azure storage, so there's no storage that you have to give in to the customer. So there's no additional cost for that storage.
So quick plugin, Lance is from our team.
Yep.
He's doing a monitoring focused session tomorrow, same time. I don't know the location, but it's same. Oh, same room, there you go. So show up here at 4:45.
Yeah, that is very hot session actually. You should definitely attend. Go ahead, sir. Yep.
Yes, I know you said it's free,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know if you can see this. I deployed this back in July,
Which one, the Arc SQL server?
app enabled SQL Server.
Uh-huh.
I deployed it in July,
Mm-hmm.
and I onboarded like 7 instances, I don't remember. And how much is it? $1,200.
No, I think we need to, I'm more than happy to work with you offline. We need to really see the line items where it is being, did you enable Defender?
I didn't enable any charge services because
I
I
see.
know that there are some services that you have to pay for.
Ah.
So I just deployed it. I have my databases running and everything.
Yeah.
And I think I had it like for 2 days.
Yeah. So after this session, I'm going to work with you. And I'm going to show you, we need to look at the invoice and all the stuff, where exactly it is reporting what kind of stuff.
He'll write you a check if.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to take your checkbook actually.
With the BPA and with the Azure Arc monitoring, I guess, I know we came from log analytics. Is there any path on the roadmap to more consolidate
Yeah,
tooling?
good question.
'Cause it's all over.
Yeah, so can I share this with the one lake thing? Yeah. So basically, there is an idea to consolidate all these logs coming from monitoring, even the log files on your Windows system, SQL Server logs into one lake in Fabric. So you will have a single place. Remember, one lake Fabric is like a single analytical system for Microsoft products. So we have plans to consolidate all this information into there so that you can really be very creative, creating dashboards all over. Like, tell me which best practices are violating my SQL Server, basically, right?
With that, is there going to be more that comes out of the box? I'm just asking.
It is going to, once you Arc enable it, this all thing happens naturally.
No, I mean the reporting front end. I know I've seen.
Oh yeah, so the reporting will come I think we have plans to provide some templates to you as a start point. And then you can, use those templates as a start point and then do it. But yes, we do have some plans to come up with a default dashboard. At least for 80% of the customers should be okay. Yep, go ahead, sir.
Just going right back to the Azure assessment, when it come up, you had the pricing for the release and sizing for the servers, but for Azure SQL database, there's nothing for DTUs. Do you estimate the DTUs per database required?
Yeah, the DTUs, yes. For SQL DB, we look into the DTUs. Basically, we translate the existing performance that we are seeing on-prem into which Azure SQL SKU can really provide the number of DTUs that are really required for it. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks everyone for coming.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we'll be around if you have any
Yeah,
questions.
we'll be around here. Yeah.
Not really sure if the information is valid, but I have worked with Azure Arc, but for hypervisors,
Uh-huh.
have you a possibility to provision stuff? So,
Provision stuff, yeah.
I have a number of developers.
Yeah.
They can provision their own machines.
So,
Can they provision databases on
yeah.
certain instances?
So, yeah. So how do, so you want to take the Arc to the next level, basically. How do I really provision? How do I manage and all this stuff, right? We're definitely getting the feedback. Customers are excited, whoever using the Arc SQL servers today. They're also asking for, can I provision a database? Can I install a new instance on top of it, right? Can I drop my database from being in Arc? Just, these are all in our roadmap. We're just looking at, what is the highest priority that customers are asking in a priority order. But that definitely, it's not a new feedback that I have heard. I heard in the past as well.
So I got a question from my developers because they have to point there, right?
Correct.
Reports.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to make them, since I'm
So one thing that I would suggest to you guys, if you have any feedback on Arc to come up with the new capabilities, if you do have an account manager associated with Microsoft, please work with the account manager to create the feedback request to the product group. The more that we see you're asking, that is going to get prioritized. Yep. Thanks everyone. I'm glad it is.
Yes.
I have like 350 SQL servers, but all